Hello there, I'm Sanj from Inclusive Magic, and in this video I'm going to talk about the philosophies of the Jedi and the Sith. If you've watched my video about philosophical stakes and the lack of them in Star Wars Episode 9, or my video about Stoic philosophy, you'll be familiar with some of the ideas that I'm going to talk about. If you haven't, watch them after this. Okay, so the Jedi and the Sith are the two best known kinds of Force users in Star Wars. We know the Jedi try to adhere to the light side of the Force, and Sith use the dark side.
The Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way.
The difference between these two schools seems to boil down to, what do you do with your emotions? The rigid prequel-era Jedi say, repress them.
Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
The Sith say, use them.
You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them.
Luke Skywalker charts a course between those two things. Listen to your emotions, but you need to control them, not let them control you. What does this mean for us in real life? Well, we're all trying to make sense of life and find something like happiness or meaning. Our emotions are a big part of how we fumble our way towards those things and away from pain and strife. Esoteric schools go as far as to say that emotions are a form of energy. And when we think of energy, we think of the Force.
It's an energy field created by all living things.
There's this idea in Star Wars that the Force has two components, the living Force and the cosmic Force.
A force that consists of two parts. Living beings generate the living force, which in turn powers the wellspring that is the cosmic force.
The living force is the energy of each living being, whereas the cosmic force is more like the big picture. When the Jedi speak of the will of the Force, they're mainly talking about the cosmic force. It's the part that's akin to a higher power. There's a parallel here to the Hindu idea of Jivatma, the energy of each living being, and Paramatma, the overall soul or energy of the universe. The old school Jedi that we saw in the prequels were all about adhering to the will of the cosmic force. Qui-Gon Jinn was a maverick who said, be mindful of the living force. It's how he found Anakin and looked closely enough to see his potential. Of course, Qui-Gon dies and Anakin is then trained in the dogmatic ways of the old Jedi. Famously, it doesn't work out. Let's look at the Jedi code. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. It's all about finding peace, because then you can hear the will of the Force.
You will know when you are calm, at peace, passive.
The Jedi were based on Buddhist monks. Buddhism is about attaining liberation from suffering, which comes from desire. If you aren't attached to external things, then your happiness and sanity don't depend on whether you have them or not. Stoicism similarly says, don't be attached to external things that are beyond your control. Focus instead on what you can control, which is your actions. Predicate your happiness on trying to live by certain virtues: justice, courage, moderation, wisdom. They believe that this is to act in accordance with nature. For Stoics, nature, the logos, is this idea of an ordered logic to the universe, which you might liken to the will of the Force. Stoics say that by living in accordance with the logos, you can find peace in a chaotic world. So the Stoics and the prequel-era Jedi seem to focus on the will of the cosmic Force. They find peace in knowing that they're trying to live in accordance with balance in the universe, something much bigger than their own individual inclinations. But they downplay the living force, which is the emotions and instincts in each of us.
That burn inside you, that anger thinking what the Raiders are going to do, the books in the Jedi library say ignore that. Only act when you can maintain balance.
I find Stoicism helpful to a large extent, but our emotions are a huge part of what makes us human, what propels life forward. People have a dream and they want to realize it, they face injustice and they're stirred to fight it, they fall in love. It's natural to want things in life, be it accomplishments, relationships, experience. Living virtuously is noble, but the Stoics call it nature. I'm not sure how naturally it comes to us. It takes work. Let's look at the Sith code. Peace is a lie, there is only passion. Through passion I gain strength, Through strength I gain power, through power I gain victory, through victory my chains are broken, the Force shall free me.
The Sith rely on their passion for their strength.
It's a pretty good motivational call, live by your passion. But we've seen where the Sith path of passion leads. You want something, you become attached to it, you're afraid to be without it.
Attachment leads to jealousy. The shadow of greed, that is.
Anakin Skywalker was a guy who loved deeply. He feared losing his loved ones. His mother's death devastated him, and his ego as a prodigious Jedi made him feel that he should have been able to save her.
You're not all powerful.
Well, I should be.
So when he had visions of Padme dying, that feeling took over again.
If you're set up for fear of loss, you will do anything to keep that loss from happening, and you're going to end up on the dark side. That's the basic premise of Star Wars and the Jedi.
For Anakin, fear led to anger, then to hate, and then to suffering, the galaxy's and his own. We all have our own individual desires and emotions, but we live as part of a larger ecosystem with other people, creatures, and forces. It's when we can't let go of something that's out of our control that it becomes a problem. We don't actually have dark side powers to draw on, but we can become selfish, unkind, vengeful in the pursuit of unfulfilled desires. The sharpest pain is for us. The dark side is our own private hell. It's despair. The big man himself talks about two kinds of happiness, pleasure and joy.
Pleasure is fun, it's great, but you can't keep it going forever. Just accept the fact that it's here and it's gone. And maybe again it'll come back and you'll get to do it again. Joy lasts forever. Pleasure is purely self-centered. It's all about your pleasure. It's about you. It's a selfish, self-centered emotion that's created by a self-centered motive of greed. Joy is compassion. Joy is giving yourself to somebody else or something else.
Joy is when there's a harmony between the living force and the cosmic force. You enjoy yourself, you feel fulfilled, but you also forget yourself because you're giving to the world. The prequels kept mentioning balance of the force, which Anakin was prophesied to bring. Some people interpret balance to mean equal light and dark, or grey. Dave Filoni said that the force is naturally in balance, but when you turn to the dark side, when you twist the force to your selfish whims, that it's thrown out of balance. So maybe the real balance isn't between light and dark, but it's between living force and cosmic force, between following your emotions and seeing the bigger picture, your needs and those of others. It's fashionable to hate on the prequel Jedi these days, but their rigidity speaks to how difficult it is to use power for good. It's very easy to use power selfishly. It's also very easy to feel powerless when people with selfish motives suffocate us with their lies and open hatred. We don't have force powers to defend the things that we hold dear. But remember, it's not that we're the Jedi and people we disagree with are the Sith. Rather, we all have these two sides to ourselves. Now, people who espouse hatred to create division, people who push big lies in order to hold on to power at all cost, they're clearly out of balance. And their actions make us angry. And they should. That anger tells us something's wrong, that there's an injustice.
I thought they were in danger. I was trying to do something.
And that's what the Resistance needs, not some old failed husk of a religion.
But then we need to pause and ask rationally, what does justice require here? What are the best steps that I can take within my control? How much of it is outside my power? And how can I exercise compassion? That's the most Jedi thing of all, to remember that we all share humanity and, like midichlorians, we do best when we are symbiotic with each other. So, we need emotion and passion or we stagnate. Follow your emotions and persevere as best you can to realize them, but beware of being so attached that when things don't go your way, you become consumed by anger or resentment. How can you find peace when you're frustrated? Stoics say, remind yourself that you're just part of nature. There's a much larger ecosystem. Take the long view. In the grand scheme of human history, we're just a tiny part. You can also try and align your goals with nature. Swim downstream. Ryan Attard looks at this peace and passion dichotomy and says, find purpose. Blend your self-expression with giving. Find a way to turn what you want into a way to give to the world. And don't beat up on yourself for not being all-powerful. If you want to hear more about these ideas, check out my other videos on Stoic philosophy and Star Wars. Until next time, stay safe and keep sharing your magic.